morning, everyone, and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. It is Thursday, and I am your hostess, Natalie, and I am going to be talking today about prejudice in the community. Now, this is a topic that, fortunately for me, I don't have a lot of personal experience with, but I have seen some things within the community that have disturbed me greatly, especially of late, and I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about those kinds of things and to talk about our personal attitudes towards our path, the paths of others, mutual respect, and so on and so forth. Now, this particular, I'm going to adjust the camera here just a little bit, sorry. Kind of high, I feel like I'm looking up, sorry. Now, again, this particular topic is not a topic that I have a lot of personal experience with in terms of, I don't feel that I've been discriminated against a lot within the witchy community by other witches. I will say that I have seen a lot of people that become very self-righteous, and I don't like that because to me it smacks a lot of the reasons I left Christianity. One of the reasons I left Christianity was because there were several different interpretations to the Bible. For example, I was raised Church of Christ, and I can remember when I was very young, we had a hard time finding a church to go to because brother so-and-so couldn't agree with brother so and what over here over what this particular scripture meant, and so this guy would go off and form his own church based on his beliefs, and this guy would go off over here, and people would take sides, and there was a lot of contention. That's one of the things that drew me to the Catholic faith when I was very young, was that it had a sense of unity in terms of what the scripture meant. They had a magisterium that decided this is what the church believes this scripture means. And you didn't have a lot of that infighting and bickering, not to say that some of that didn't occur, because again, people still have their own opinions and their own beliefs. But one of the things that really drew me to a pagan path was that people seemed, to me at least, on the outset, to be a lot more willing to listen to the views of others and to be less judgmental about the personal paths of other people. Now, as I've gotten deeper into my path and I've gotten deeper into the pagan communities, and I have involved myself in several discussion groups on Facebook and other social sites and groups that meet within my local area, I have come to find there is still an element of judgmentalism within the pagan community that I find astounding and a little disappointing, to be frank. Particularly, and I'm not saying this applies to all Wiccans, so please don't take it as such, but I have seen a lot of Wiccans who believe that very strongly in the harm none rule and in the rule of three. And so they tend to look down upon the paths of and say negative things to the paths of people such as myself who do not follow a rule of three. I believe that you are a witch, you have power. Now, I believe that your own sense of moral guidance ought to tell you that to directly interfere negatively in the lives of another person, or to interfere in the life of another person or in their path without their consent or knowledge is kind of wrong. I mean, you just don't do that. You wait for that person to ask you for help, or you offer your help, and if they say no, you back away. But there are a lot of Wiccans that think that, you know, you shouldn't enact witchy revenge on somebody. Cursing and hexing is always evil, and I don't believe that. I don't abide by that. I think that, you know, and it's funny because there's a lot of authors out there who kind of preach the same sort of thing. They say that it's not your right to judge that person's actions, that it's up to the god and goddess or the universe to decide what their punishment should be. But I don't necessarily always believe that. I think that if someone has wronged you, you have a right to go out and set the balance straight. And I have found that that right there has actually brought on some very negative comments from people who do not agree with me. And I have no problem with people that feel that way, and if they live their life that way and they are not hypocritical about it, that's fine, that's their path. But again, I don't think anybody has a right to impose their view upon me. I don't go around cursing and hexing people. I don't go around enacting revenge on all my enemies. I will take measures to protect myself, and I will take measures to ensure that some measure of what they do goes back to them. But if something major has occurred and a balance needs to be reestablished, I have no problem with doing that. So I personally haven't seen a lot of prejudice towards myself because I came from a specific background or because of what have you. Again, one of the things that really drew me to a pagan path was that people were, in my opinion, or from my experience, what I could see in terms of people's discussions and people's acceptance of other people, is that it was a very accepting community. It's one of those things where each person has their individual path. We all kind of follow some similar storylines. I've seen a lot of similar storylines in how we all came to our path. I see a lot of similarities in how people conduct ritual and so forth, and there's a core basis there and a core morality that links us all, but there are offshoots of that, and I find that there tends to be some judgmentalism when it comes to how you conduct your path. But I don't see, personally, a lot of discrimination on the basis of race and the basis of where you live, how you come back. Now, I could be entirely wrong, and maybe somebody else's experience is different, but that's one of the reasons I liked this path, was I could have friends of many different backgrounds. I could have friends who followed many different belief systems, and we could share ideas intellectually and religiously with one another without there being that kind of backlash. So in terms of my personal experience, I have not seen a lot. I do see some judgmentalism in terms of some high and mightyism that I kind of, to me, smacks of a lot of other of the organized religions that drew me away from the organized religions. And I tend to just avoid those people. I either will not engage in the discussion, or I may give my opinion, but I'm not going to banter back and forth with somebody that's obviously got an opinion and they're going to keep their opinion, and nothing I say is going to influence it, because nothing they say is going to influence me either. So I won't get into a back and forth petty discussion. I despise hypocrisy and pettiness, and it's one of those things that I don't have time for it. I left high school over 20 years ago. I'd like to leave that stuff in the past. That kind of behavior belongs in the past for me. If you're here to have an honest intellectual discussion where we can talk about things and disagree perhaps, and agree to disagree on that, and what have you, then I'm all for it. But I'm not for judging someone that says they did this or that, and somebody else comes out and says, well, how dare you do that? That's so against the god or goddess, or, oh, that's, da-da-da-da. Because I'm not, that kind of person. And, unless you do something that's like totally evil, you purposely set out to hurt someone without any kind of justification to that at all, that to me is wrong. But that's a matter of right or wrong. That's not a matter of prejudice. That's a matter of, that's just a wrong thing to do. It's like you don't go out and set a dog on fire. Okay? You don't go out and shoot somebody just because you don't like them. You don't go out and destroy someone's property because they make you angry. You just don't do that. When I am enacting something like that, it is always after extreme meditation, deep calmness, and what have you, and I've come to the decision that this is the action that needs to be taken. That's what's been revealed to me. I never act out in anger, and I think a lot of times people assume that if you are enacting a revenge, it's always done in anger, and that's not necessarily true. So in terms of my experience within prejudice in the community, I love the fact that I have not seen very much of it, that we can all be accepting of one another regardless of our background or race or gender, and that we can discuss things together. Now, I will say, in the past few years, I have seen, and this has been mentioned by a few of my friends who are male witches, that there has been extremes. I don't like extremes of any kind. I tend to be rather fiscally conservative, socially liberal in my political views, which does influence my practice because it's part of who I am. I do not believe that extreme feminism is a good thing. I believe that, and one of the things that I like about paganism is that it is a balance. You seek balance. And there has to be a balance between male and female energies. We're equal and complementary, not, contradictory. That each has its season and its time, each has its strengths, and each deserving of equal respect within your practice and within your views. And I have seen some prejudice towards men that are in the practice. I've seen a lot of kind of ridiculous discussions about, um, the nomenclature of different, you know, things. I think I did a video on what is a witch, because there's a lot of discussion about if you're pagan, are you a witch? If you're a witch, are you pagan? What if you aren't, Wiccan, are you still a witch? Are Wiccans witches? And what have you, what have you. I think that nomenclature is a lot of just what you see yourself as. And I think a lot of times there's some prejudice that comes out based on the nomenclature that you choose to use. If you're a male witch and you want to call yourself a warlock, then that's your choice. I don't care what you call yourself. To me, you're a witch. If you're a witch, you're a witch. But, if you prefer the term warlock, I'll respect that, and I'll call you a warlock. I know a lot of people don't like the term warlock because it comes from the Scottish Gaelic term oathbreaker, and a lot of people think that that's very negative, and we're trying to get away from those negative kinds of stereotypes when it comes to the community. I think you tend, within the pagan community, to see more prejudice from outside of the pagan community towards you and your path, because people don't understand what it means to be a witch or what it means to be pagan. And I think that 2,000 years of brainwashing within organized religion has really set back a lot of people's opinions of witches, and as people learn more, they tend to kind of step away. I know my husband's of the opinion that it's all a bunch of hooey, all religion is hooey, but he believes in God, so I don't know. But I see a lot of prejudice more from him than I do from people outside the community. Even a lot of the families that I serve, several of the parents know that I am a witch, and they have no problem with it. To them, it doesn't affect them. They see that I care about their child, that I'm not going to eat their child or boil their child in a cauldron and sacrifice them on an altar, which is ridiculous in and of itself. And I always kind of laugh when people mention things like that. And no, I don't drink goat's blood, and that kind of thing. It's ridiculous. But I kind of laugh, and I kind of like it when people come to me with something like that, because I know for them it's an honest question. And they want to know what is it really all about. So when I start to explain to them about my path, then you start to see a little bit of an understanding going on, or at least okay, I didn't realize that. And then perhaps that person will take that information and research some more, and they start to find that it's not what they thought it was. And so hopefully that reduces some of the prejudice within the community there. But again, most of the prejudice that I've seen has been from not within the community, but from people without, although there are elements of disagreement within the community that I think sometimes leads to some judgmental problems amongst witches themselves. And I just want to state that that's, people's opinions are very hard to change. People always think that they're in the right. They're very unwilling to listen to another path when their mind is made up that their way is the only way. That's one of the things that drew me away from Christianity, was because each person had their own opinion of what was right, and every person could justify their views based on scripture, and so it was a big circle. Everybody's chasing their tail. So a path like this, where it's more on yourself to get in touch with the deity on your own, was far more appealing to me, and for me, it frees me to be a lot less judgmental as well. So I really, okay, that's what that does. Didn't have a clue. I really feel that there may be an element of prejudice within the community. I think it's more gender-based than it is race or ethnic or anything else based. I'm going to watch everybody else's videos because maybe everybody else has had a different experience, and I'd like to see that. I, for myself, haven't seen it, but again, that's why I like this path. I have seen a lot of extreme feminism where, people have talked poorly about men or the use or worship of a god, but I am of the opinion that it is a balance and that we need one another. Life cannot exist without male and female, so I tend to kind of stay away from those arguments, and maybe that's why I haven't seen a lot of that, because to me that's just ridiculous, and I just tend to shut ridiculosity down. It's not something I pay any attention to. So I hope that this video has been somewhat informative, or that it sparked some discussion either in our Facebook page or here in the comments section. I look forward to seeing your experiences. If you've had a different experience, please share that, because I think the more we know about things like that, the more we can put a stop to that kind of ridiculousness. So please feel free to leave any comments. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and blessed be.